Linebackers are a good, quick bunch, probably one of the best in football. Now, all of a sudden, you stabilize that backfield. The key here is Rod Woodson. You get a guy like McAllister who's big like Woodson. Woodson can teach him like a big corner how to play out there. Starks on the other side, Stephon Moore, Kim Herring. You've got yourself a really solid secondary. Sure, Brian Billick is an offensive coach and would like to have gotten probably a wide receiver. But what's the next best thing? Stopping people from being able to move the football is a great way to beat people in the National Football League. The addition here, I think, is a big plus for the Ravens.
Ravens are an interesting team in that they were 6-10, but they had 5 Pro Bowlers last year. So is this a team that now is ready to make a little bit of leap in a division where, frankly, you can move around a little bit with an expansion team in the division? We shall see if this draft pick of McAllister helps them along the way. Mike Tirico, your observations.
Chris, there's some off-the-field issues with McAllister, one that was resolved in some ways on Friday. The background: in August of '98, about 9 months ago, he was charged with petty theft, fined $405, and given 3 years probation and 10 hours community service. What happened was the payment of the fine did not come forth. So at that point, a bench warrant was issued, but on this past Friday in an L.A. court, his attorney paid the outstanding fine. McAllister was sentenced to serve 10 days in the city jail, appear before the court on June 15th to show proof of the time served, and the probation was reinstated. So essentially, once the fine was paid, they have him back to the initial situation where there is some probation that he has to deal with. In seeing him play personally and talking with his coach, Dick Tomey, who relates him to Darrell Lewis, a former Thorpe Award winner, best defensive back in the country, McAllister is a guy who Dick Tomey had a lot of positive things to say about, admitted a mistake, as many people do in these situations. And as far as the Arizona folks were concerned, Chris McAllister's balance of the '98 season was very positive, very forward, and they see this as a blip and not a significant trend of something that's wrong with Chris McAllister, as you mentioned, a very talented player who played against good passing offenses in the Pac-10 group.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. By the way, first time since 1983 that we have not had any defensive lineman go in the top 10. Now, Minnesota, who had the most interesting draft on 1 pick last year with Randy Moss. Now, could they be talking to Dante Culpepper right now as the heir apparent to Randall Cunningham, even though Jeff George is there? You know Denny Green covets his athletic ability. Let's go to Minnesota and join Andrea Kramer. Good afternoon, Andrea.
Good afternoon, Chris. Yes, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say they are talking to Dante Culpepper, the quarterback from Central Florida. They also are very happy to see Javon Kearse there, but Denny Green made it very clear that with a 15-1 team, you don't have to have someone to come in and start, but also the Vikings draft philosophy is you don't go for need with the first pick. The Vikings had Culpepper rated as the best quarterback in the league. They were not the only team to do so. The Bucs, for example, also had Culpepper rated very highly. Remember, the Vikings have a 36-year-old Randall Cunningham, a recently signed Jeff George, but it's just to a 1-year contract. When I asked Denny Green what he liked about Dante Culpepper, he pointed to his size, but he said this is one of the all-time nice, focused athletes. He's been through the fire. He's gone through a lot, having been raised in a foster home. He's a great athlete, the best athlete out there. He's got vision. I think that Dante Culpepper would be the perfect fit to sit and learn in the Minnesota Vikings' tremendous offensive system. Chris, let's head back to you in New York.
All right, Andrea Kramer, thank you very much. If indeed it's going to be Dante Culpepper, it would be the first time the Vikings have used a first-round pick on a quarterback since Tommy Kramer in 1977. You see, we send our reporters to places for reasons that you're not even aware of at home. Kramer versus Kramer. Here's the depth chart with Jeff George, a great backup. So if Culpepper comes in, there is no pressure on him at all.
Well, I think this is a fabulous place, first of all, for Jeff George to be able to go in and back up. I think Randall Cunningham can repeat in the year that he's had. But why should we have the suspense? Why should we wait anymore? Let's just go to the commissioner and see who Minnesota really decided they wanted to take.
Good segue, Joe. You're learning in this role.
I'm trying. I have a great teacher.
Who's that?
With the 11th pick in the draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Dante Culpepper, quarterback, University of Central Florida.
You know who's as excited as Dante is right now? Mike Krusek, who played in the National Football League, was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, played with them in Washington, D.C. He was his head coach at Central Florida for the last couple of years and has really worked hard on giving this man an opportunity to be able to hone his skills to be able to play.
And you know what, Mel, as we look at highlights, loyalty By the time he was ready to come out, he had committed to Central Florida. Bigger schools were looking at him. He was loyal and stayed in a program that theoretically could have hurt him in the pros. It obviously didn't.
And we talked about Donovan McNabb, how important to go back for a senior year. Very important that Dante Culpepper went back to Central Florida. Strong arm, touch on the deep ball as well. So not just a thrower, he's also a pitcher. And I think when you look at the accuracy, completed a high percentage of his passes, didn't have tremendous wideouts to throw to, certainly played against some top teams, sees the field fairly well, but his vision on the move is something he needs to work on in the National Football League. Here, though, 6'4", 255, easily shrugs off Jesse Tarplin and makes the play. That's something most quarterbacks are not able to do. Here, the scramble for the touchdown against Nebraska. Fullback-type speed, but halfback-type quickness when he starts to move around. I think the difference between Culpepper and McNabb, where McNabb had that great vision to pick out those third and fourth receivers on the move, that's something Dante Culpepper needs to work on. But in Minnesota, Joe, he'll have an opportunity to do so behind Cunningham and behind George.
But the one thing that impressed me, and these are things that people don't necessarily know about this young man, he came out of high school at 242 pounds. He played at 255 in college. That means over the 4-year period, he was disciplined enough to keep his weight down and understand what his responsibility and job would be if he had a chance to play at the next level. I think that's an indication of the type of man that Minnesota's getting.
And you know what was in place? I mean, when they took Randy Moss last year, there was Chris Carter to be a mentor, and he certainly was. Well, here's Randall Cunningham to be a mentor, if you will, for Dante Culpepper when he goes up and plays under Denny Green. An intriguing choice. We've had 4 quarterbacks go in 11. Cade McNown is soon to follow on a historic day here at the 64th NFL Draft. Now, for more on our, well, no, we're going to stay right here. Culpepper's career numbers, 4-year starter, over 11,000 yards passing, 84 touchdown passes. But you know what's impressive? 402 passes last year, and here they are, 402 passes last year, only 7 intercepted. I mean, that, Joe, is pretty impressive. I don't care what level you're playing at. 7 picks and over 400 attempts.
And you look at the numbers of Nussmeier and McNair and the different people. I mean, the rushing yards, I don't think they're as high, which is good. To be honest with you, you're not going to win a lot of football games as a quarterback in the National Football League having to run for as many yards as, say, Steve McNair did. You can't run for 560 yards and take your team to the next level. Steve McNair will use his arm more and have to if Tennessee's going to want to advance. Now, we're moving right along so quickly. Everybody's making deals. Let's go to the commissioner one more time, and let's see who the next pick is going to be.
You are getting good. And you also, we got a rare view of Doug Nussmeier from Idaho. It's good to get his picture up.
Quickly.
Is this going to be your number one?
Well, here, hey, this
Joe?
could be the end of the quarterbacks. I mean, look at this. Here could be the next one.
This is the guy that I thought, everything considered, is technically the most sound of all the quarterbacks coming out of this draft. This could and well be Cade McNown.
With the 12th pick in the draft, the Chicago Bears select Cade McNown, quarterback, UCLA.
See, now the Bears gambled. He wasn't necessarily going to be there at 12 if Baltimore had made a move. But they gambled a little bit in their trade with Washington, and they won as well. The Skins gambled and ended up with Champ Bailey. And now the Bears have gotten extra picks, and they end up with Cade McNown.
Both teams gambled. Washington gambled. Chicago gambled. They both got the players they wanted. It worked out perfectly. Mike Ditka's on the golf course. Everybody's having a great Saturday
You're not
so
implying
far.
he's gambling on the golf course?
Absolutely not. He's just out having a good time on the golf course. I like the ability of Cade McNown, not just to be able to run the football, but he sees the field well. I compare him to Jake Plummer. He's a playmaker. He has the ability to move around the field. Everybody questions his arm strength. There you see him throw the ball down the field. I don't question his arm strength at all. It isn't how far you have to throw the ball. It's how accurately and how quickly you can get it there. There he shows his versatility as a receiver. Again, steps up in the pocket and lets it fly. I like everything about Cade McNown.
I think dealing with the weather conditions in Chicago. We talked about his arm strength. You say it's more than satisfactory. I say it's slightly above average, so we differ there.
I think it's overrated. I think dealing with weather conditions is overrated.
Going to Chicago and dealing with the weather and the wind will not be a factor with Cade McNown.
I think he'll be fine. I don't think the weather, the wind, the weather in Soldiers Field or wherever they're going to play, whatever they want to call it, is not going to be a factor.
Well, I'm
Absolutely
not surprised, Joe, since you said you would have taken him number 1.
That's right.
A lefty.
That's okay, too.
A port sider in the Windy City. And because they don't know if Eric Kramer, how long he's going to be healthy.
Bobby Douglas.
Well,
one of the great lefties in Chicago.
He throws a little more touch than Bobby Douglas. I don't know if he's going to run. If he runs close to Bobby, he'd be great. But if he can throw it a little more touch than Bobby Douglas. Let's go up with guys who always had touch when they threw. Mark Malone and Ron Jaworski. Fellas?
Well, Boomer, thank you very much. This is a very interesting choice. Everybody talked about Cade McNown's size, certainly. Another two